What the Tech is sponsored by Shutterstock.com, with over 26 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. For 30% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code WhatTheTech6. Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website, blog, portfolio, and now an online store. Check out the new commerce solution so you can get started selling your stuff immediately. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on a new account, go to squarespace.com and use offer code WhatTheTech6.
What the Tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thoreau himself. Paul Thoreau. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
Paul Thoreau.
How are you?
Do you get the Thoreau a lot?
I get all kinds of stuff. Every once in a while, someone will actually get it right.
What's the worst? Like something that you're like, how did you even come up with that?
I don't even remember. I don't really pay attention. You know, the problem is when no one can pronounce your name, you just kind of nod your head no matter what they say. So people will say something ridiculous. And you're like, yeah, that's me.
I get Zorian a lot, Zarian,
yeah.
And I got Zortanian the other day. I don't even know where they put the T, but Zortanian. I'm like, what was the D'Artagnan was the Three Musketeer, right?
See, now you've got it in my head. D'Artagnan? That's a little off.
It might be a little off. And now he knows how I feel.
I gotta look this one up. Musketeers.
I love that, Paul Thoreau. So many people say, like, hey, you do a show with that guy, Paul Thoreau. I'm like, have no clue who that guy is. D'Artagnan, okay. He wasn't Armenian. It was very disappointing to know. He was French.
French, one would imagine.
Yeah, he was a Frenchman. This is a show about Frenchmen and everything that has to do with France. No, it's about technology. It's about what we like with tech. For people tuning in live, we're recording the show a day early today. Paul is getting ready to go to Build, and you're going to have a very, very busy week, which we're going to discuss. I also want to discuss the Xbox. Still, I thought we'd be done with the Xbox this week, Paul, but it seems like that is not the case.
Yeah, let's just be honest. We're never going to be done with the Xbox.
And, you know, I got an email last week from someone. They go, you know, you guys are really talking about the Xbox a lot. It's been like 2 weeks. I'm like, yeah, but this is like a huge story.
You know what?
I'm like, you guys have to understand.
That kind of complaint.
This is a humongous story. And I guess I'll go right into it.
I get that all the time. You know, Windows Phone will come out. A new version of Windows Phone will come out and be like, man, you're really writing about Windows Phone a lot. What's up with that? You know? Yeah. You know, that's how it works. The reason we're talking about it is because stuff is going on.
I want to talk about the Xbox stuff because this has been a major issue with me. Not the Xbox itself, but this bizarre reaction people have to things. And the reason why I say it's bizarre, you know, last week I think Tuesday we were talking about the Xbox stuff, and I was kind of saying how people are overreacting and we still don't have all the answers, and I don't even know why, but I kind of alluded like, listen, guys, hang on tight. We still have a lot of time. They might change their minds. They might add this feature that you like. A lot's going to happen over the next couple months.
Right.
And the YouTube comments were insane. I mean, and I'm talking about like on Tuesday night when we released the show, and it was like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. This is how Microsoft is. They're stonewalling you, and they want to take your money, and they're trying to screw you. And you know what? And I wrote, we don't know yet. Give it some time. If enough backlash happens, guess what? This is not the same Microsoft. Look what they did with Windows 8. Everybody complained they want that start button back, and guess what? Now it's there.
Right.
People want to boot into desktop, and it's going to be there. These things, it's a different mindset. You can't get away with, especially now with social media and the way that things are, you can't get away with saying, we're going to shove this down your throat and you're going to like it. Well, unless you're Apple. Apple could do that.
Sure.
But, I mean, that people are changing. The businesses are realizing that they need to keep their customers happy rather than telling them, like, this is how we're doing it, and that's all you're going to get. So I guess Wednesday was the day that they said it, or Tuesday they said it? Wednesday.
You actually were expecting me to remember what day it was?
Yeah, I think it was Wednesday. I think it was
it's been a blur ever since.
Yeah, I think it was literally like the following day that they said, okay, we're going backwards on the DRM stuff. And now, all around the internet goes, well, I guess it should be called the Xbox 180 because now they've done a total 180 on what they believe in. And I go, you know what? You're an ass.
Yeah, you're just here to be a jerk.
Like, at this point, you got what you wanted. And now you're complaining that you got what you want. And all these people are complaining about it. And still, even now, with them going backwards, you're still getting this weird anti-Xbox rhetoric all over the internet. Everybody's complaining. Everybody's like, well, PlayStation didn't do that. They didn't try to screw you. Xbox tried to screw you, and we told them, you could shove it. It's this weird good guy versus bad guy. I'm a PS4 guy. I'm a Xbox guy. Windows, PC, Mac. I don't understand this anymore. It's really starting to bother me. And like the comments on Twitter and Facebook, and I just keep reading, and I'm like, you people are idiots. It's just so many dumb people.
It would not be worth looking into this, but a lot of the same people who are complaining now were probably complaining before, right? Even though they've completely reversed course. It's kind of strange.
You know what's funny? The same people that were complaining about the PlayStation, how they have fallen behind the Xbox, are now the PlayStation guys complaining about Xbox, and now they've made the total spin about it. I got into a huge fight with somebody last week about this stuff. And I've never in my life, I don't know if you've experienced it, Paul, but I've never got into like an argument over technology with someone. Like politics, personal beliefs, fine. But you're talking about like a gadget. You're talking about like a computer. Like it's not worth having this discussion. Like, you don't like it, don't buy it. I like it, I'm going to buy it. That's really what it comes down to. Like, I could comment on it, but like have a discussion about it. This guy came and he just blasted me and he started accusing me of crazy stuff. He goes, you did a show with that Paul guy and he's a Microsoft guy and that's why you guys are talking about the Xbox and that's why you're all about the Xbox. And I lost it on him. And I go, why don't you like this? He's like, on PlayStation, the PlayStation is not going to do this weird stuff with used games. I'm like, what is the last used game you bought? Just curious. And he goes, I've never bought a used game, but if I wanted to buy a used game, it's a problem. I'm like, well, you do know that it's up to the publisher, right? Like that whole DRM stuff. Like if EA says you can't go and sell games and give games, that's how it's going to be. He goes, no, that's not true. That's not true. People are choosing what to believe at this point.
Yep. And
it's baffling to me.
Now, events will occur and people's preconceived notions come flying out, And this is where you see, I hate to use the word bias because I think bias is, misused too much, but people have their own, preconceived notions. They just do. And they sort of build their conspiracy theories around that.
Yeah, no, they do.
It's the thing I feel bad about, and I think I must have said this last week, but I remember before we knew the details of this, the world had exploded, over this supposed requirement for always-on internet connection and everything. And I kept saying, guys, let's just wait until they see what they, until we see what they say. They'll explain this, and then I think everything will be fine. And of course, what I had forgotten was that this is Microsoft, and they don't really explain things very well. And so they did explain it. And it really didn't make anything fine at all.
It's almost like last year's Windows Phone announcement. Remember that? It was a very vague. It's like, we're not going to talk about this yet. This is what we're going to talk about.
Right.
They just alluded to certain things and totally jumped over it. But, Paul, do you think this is going to... last week you said something interesting. You said, I don't think it's going to really affect sales. I think it's going to be neck and neck. And that's just the way it's going to be from... they both have sold...
anything has changed.
Yeah, like nothing has changed. Personally. Even now. Yeah, even now you're talking about... The Xbox came out like a year and a half, 2 years before PlayStation 3 came out.
Yeah.
The numbers are pretty equal.
They're neck and neck.
A couple mil here and there, but that's nothing at that point. I think it's going to be even closer. Like it's going to be neck and neck throughout the device.
The things that are going to impact this generation of games, we haven't seen yet. It's going to be game franchises that make a big difference. It's going to be whether they can sell a system to people who aren't game players, to people who want this kind of thing in their living room. Microsoft has one advantage in that they have a really good ecosystem of, computers and other devices that's already in place and a user base that uses that stuff. And lots of applications and services that run on top of it. And Sony has some stuff too, obviously, but I don't really feel like they have that pervasive ecosystem that Microsoft does around the entertainment stuff. So, we'll see. I mean, anything could happen. I don't,
It was amazing. Like the guy that was arguing with me, his point was, you should not be able to comment on this stuff because you're not a gamer. That was his argument. Like, you're not a gamer, so
Sure.
why do you have such an opinion on this? Your opinion doesn't matter, and you don't know what you're talking about because I play video games, but you don't.
Wow. That's...
And my answer to him was, like, I'm a normal person with normal thoughts. You are not, because you're having this discussion with me right now. And you know what I think? I think it is, Paul, and you tell me, because you play games. I feel like it's the same way, like, people like their little clubs, right? And the gaming world, like, even though it's gigantic, this hardcore gaming world, almost, for whatever reason, a lot of people feel that it's like this little niche group with people, and this is their little world. And now, because of all the television content and the media, like the Netflix and the Hulu and all the services that they're offering, it's almost like their world is getting run down by regular, Joe Schmoes. Like, they don't understand why they're concentrating on media. And I have to, like, the reality is, your little group is tiny. It's a fraction of the portion of people that watch television, and they need to attract more people so they're able to provide everybody with more services and make more money and hopefully continue what they're doing. I mean, in 2013, look at Nintendo's approach, which is strictly gaming. That's not working.
Right.
So what makes them think that it's going to work for Sony or Microsoft if they take the approach of, we're only going to play games right now? That's all we're going to do. I don't want TV. I don't care about always on. I don't want any of that stuff. I just want to play my disc.
Yeah. People don't think beyond their own needs. I mean, and this is the one thing I get into trouble with people, because they don't seem to understand this. Obviously I have my own needs and my own requirements and all that kind of stuff. And I might look at something like an Xbox One or whatever the product is with an eye toward, how does this impact what I want to do? How does this work for me? But I've been writing about technology for 20 years. I know how to write a review with an eye toward the normal, group of people that might use this thing, and does this thing make sense? I will do things like write a review of like the latest version of iTunes or something and say, actually, this version of iTunes is pretty great. I'm not going to use it personally, but actually this one's really good. I mean, it had been junk for many, many years on Windows, at least. I think people don't understand that part of it. And so a lot of times people, that when someone says, that Paul guy, it's like, oh, he's the Microsoft guy. He must just be blindly loyal to Xbox.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been pretty open about my feelings.
No, you've been pretty critical of them,
and and Microsoft in general. But I'm not as firmly tied into this as maybe people believe. I mean, so I will get an Xbox One and a PS4, and I'll look at these things, and we'll see.
A great thing someone told me, because Microsoft has to rely on services, TV services, because they know they can't beat Sony with gaming. And I said, well, wow. I forgot. Was it Sony or Microsoft that put a Blu-ray player and kind of sold their console as a Blu-ray player?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, that was Sony. Sony's the one who became an entertainment console way before Microsoft did.
I would be very interested to see, and I don't know if you could ever accurately do this, but look at the top 5 exclusive game franchises on each console, PS3 versus Xbox 360, and see which one sold more. Yeah. And then there are games like, Call of Duty, where I suspect that even though that game is multi-platform, the vast majority of people play online on Call of Duty are probably on an Xbox 360. But that's just my impression. I actually have no idea.
Listen,
I would be interested to see it.
How about we find out of all the Sony sales, what percentage of those people bought it for the Blu-ray only, and what percentage of them actually bought it for a game? Because I bought it for a Blu-ray player.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, that's the reality. I bought it for a Blu-ray player.
I bought it I bought it to kind of test it, but I remember thinking, well, even if I never use this thing as a PS3, who cares? It's a Blu-ray player.
It's a Blu-ray, and it was a very inexpensive and
at the time,
really good
it was
Blu-ray.
Actually, one of the better ones too, right? Because in the early days of Blu-ray, some of them were not internet connected, and some were, and you can improve the capabilities through updates, and the PS3 always had that capability. So it was kind of one for the time, for this age of disc-based media, it was kind of leading edge for about 15 minutes there.
Yeah. So I found it to be a very fascinating discussion, but I really think this is people's mentality on this, and that's, you know, they do have somewhat of a point, but that is scary that that's how people are thinking. Like, don't enter my world. You're just an average person. You should not be playing these games.
Yeah, well, that's always a comeuppance for those people, unfortunately, because as the wider world shows up in your little sandbox, things change, you know. And one of the things that's going to have to change with both of these consoles is that for them to be truly successful, they're going to need to reach that mass audience. And that means that the emphasis of those boxes is going to have to change from kowtowing to hardcore, you know, gamers, and focusing more on mainstream entertainment users, which is, you know, everybody. I have a feeling that that's part of the issue.
But with the price point,
that's what
Paul,
they're trying to prevent.
With the price point that they have, you know, $399 and $499. Well, for the gamer, they're going to buy it. But is that price point attractive to?
No. There's no one who doesn't want to play video games should purchase either one of these boxes in 2013. That makes no sense at all.
But do you think they're going to go out and do that? Like, what percentage of those people buying this is going to say, like, oh wow, look, I have all my TV stuff on here. I could buy this, and if I wanted, I can play video game.
Well, there's no. I don't really think there's a huge advantage to it yet. This is one of those things down the road. It's not just reducing the price, although that's going to make a huge impact on this. It's going to be the stuff we don't know about yet. You know, will Microsoft, in fact, have agreements with various cable companies, Fios, whatever, and have an integrated experience with that TV? That, by the way, that would put this thing over the top immediately. If it's for a lot of people.
Okay,
if they
so
just integrated it directly with a cable system.
Okay, so you brought this up, and I for whatever reason, like, I've been disconnected from that discussion. But you also believe that if they had like a little coax jack on the back, you just plug in your cable and you work it that way. That would be a tremendous thing for them.
Well, they have HDMI in, so by the way, that would do it, right? I mean, that would work.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying, right? You'd have to have some way to get the cable in. So
you get the cable in directly, you just coax in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a thing that people would want? Like,
anyone who uses a cable box would want that.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no such thing as, well, there's almost no such thing as really good software in a cable set-top box. So, yeah, and I don't necessarily think that's going to happen exactly, but it's certainly not going to happen right away. So, this is wait and see. I mean, for one thing, the price will come down. It has to on both of these consoles. That's one thing. And then we'll have to wait and see. I mean, if this is just an Xbox 360 and a PS3 with slightly better graphics,
it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's not really. That's not really a big deal, folks. You know, I'm sorry. It really just isn't. I mean, obviously, you need better processing power to drive the engine and and deliver that many pixels and all that kind of stuff. And we'll see. But if these things are just evolutionary leaps over the current generation, this is going to be very disappointing.
I mean, you know what would even be a huge game changer? Just have a connector and just do over-the-air, TV. And then everything else is services.
Over-the-air TV,
yeah. You purchase all the services, so you get over-the-air. Then you get in Hulu and Netflix and whatever else you're going to be using.
Actually, for a lot of people who would otherwise switch to something like a Netflix or whatever, or some combination of services, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, whatever, you miss out on some things depending on, again, on what you're into and what you care about. So we like to watch the baseball games, and you can't watch local baseball games in any of those services. And so, how do you do that? Well, one of the ways you can do that, possibly, depending on where you live and what the situation is maybe an over-the-air HD antenna. Maybe that is a solution, but I don't know, it's a lot of work. I think the trick behind the Xbox One is going to be whether they can realize that vision of this one place where you go for everything. That there are technical people who can figure this stuff out today. There are people who connect cable cards to TiVos or to computers and do stuff like that. Or people who use Media Center still. You have to do a lot of work to make that stuff.
Are people still using Media Center?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
but it's dead, right? I mean, they're not.
I don't think they're ever going to update it.
Yeah. Because the Xbox is their thing.
Yep.
You know what would be phenomenal if they did? I mean, imagine Media Center, but with the Xbox layout,
I know. I mean, yes, I think
everybody has a computer. Everybody has a computer. You have all those services on there.
Right. Well, the Xbox is also a computer too. So
Yeah.
you could make the argument, why can't this thing just run on the Xbox? I mean,
there's so many arguments you could have about this. Like, here's a great example. They don't make their money off of the set-top box. They make their money from the services that they offer, like Xbox Live. So why not offer an Xbox Live service? You have it on your computer. You plug it into the TV. All those Xbox arcade games are on there. Obviously, you can't play, the titles that are coming out in the stores, but those Xbox arcade games are all readily available if you have an Xbox Live subscription, and now you're purchasing them all onto the computer, and you're playing with a controller. That's all.
Sure.
Now you're 60 million. I'm guessing the number of Xbox Live subscribers is nearly equivalent to whoever has an Xbox.
Well, it's about half the total sales.
So
I think it was like
46 million. Out of a potential, only 70 million units or 60 million units, whatever it is. Now you have that entire PC market that could potentially be using Xbox Live, playing a limited portion of games, and subscribing to your services.
Sure.
Does that make too much sense, or is that like...
The other thing I would say is that, and I know they looked into this, but one of the alternatives for this generation of consoles would have been to forego the local processing and not really have a big, heavy, thick, monolithic console like what we're seeing, but rather do that on live type thing. And Microsoft is pushing this notion of, I think they said they had 300,000 servers or something that were, some of which were Xbox Live, some of which were Azure, that was backing this system. And you have to almost think, like, if you've got that much processing power on the back end, I mean, why do we even need a heavy console? I mean, you could basically do the Xbox version of remote desktop, stream this stuff.
Do you feel that something like Azure is a great way for them to, because they're rolling it out and that's their future, right? Their whole cloud-based future is in Azure right now.
Sure.
The Xbox is a great way to test on how reliable and stable it'll be. If you look at it,
and it's possible that there'll be some crazy little chipset that can be built into a TV or into a tiny Roku-style box in the near future, and so that will essentially, between that and the cloud power of Azure, offer the equivalent of an Xbox One video gaming experience, and of course the entertainment stuff as well. We already know Roku can do that right now, so I don't think we're that far from it. In fact, for all of the complaining that's occurring right now around discs and lending stuff to people and buying used games and blah blah blah, I really feel like this is kind of the end of the line for this stuff. I mean, these may be they may be it. In fact, I think the most shocking thing about this generation of consoles, PS4 and Xbox One, is in fact how closely they resemble the consoles that came before them. They're not that different, architecturally or how they're set up. I mean, the way they work. I mean, and I think you do see hints of the future in the Xbox One. They wanted to go much further. Of course, now they've scaled it back a little bit, but because of the reaction. But this is that cloud computing thing again. I mean, I think it's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't the end of it.
I mean, I'm imagining, and I'm sure you're probably thinking the same. We're one generation away from this cloud-based entire, everything's on the cloud.
So think about it this way. I mean, I don't know what features to call out that would make sense, but if you're on some generation of device. Actually, maybe Halo would be a good example, because the original Halo and Halo 2 came out on the first Xbox, right? This is a machine that is now like 12 years old. And then the Xbox 360 came out. And so you get this kind of updated Halo experience. There were complaints about it. I don't know if you remember this, but it wasn't really full HD when it first came out or whatever. But Halo 3 comes out, and then Halo 4 comes out. And, these games are much better looking than the original Halo. So much, in fact, that they reproduced the original Halo to make it look like a 360 game. They did like an anniversary edition.
Yeah.
So now there's going to be another Halo game. And I realize there are other Halo titles. I kind of skipped over there. But there's like a Halo 5 coming, or whatever they're going to call it. Halo 5 will require the Xbox One. It will have increased visuals again, bigger levels, and some sort of a cloud-based, open-ended multiplayer thing that can grow with you as you go along and all that. And so it's like this evolution, but you've had to buy different machines. I mean, in some future version of this, Halo or other games like Halo, like Call of Duty or Battlefield or whatever, can be improved without you having to buy something new necessarily. Or not something as expensive. You know, that it doesn't require this monolithic new box that you plop down in your living room that is, by the way, incompatible with every game you've ever bought. You know, that when you move to this kind of cloud version of this future console, that those updates that previously required new generations of hardware maybe won't, you know. And that things can just grow, I don't want to say organically, but they can grow without you having to purchase new hardware.
This is a very interesting topic, Paul. I know a lot of people are interested. I'm actually getting tweeted like insane right now because people are. This is something, and it just goes to show you a lot of people do care about the media and the television integration and all of that.
But you know what though? But okay, a lot of people care about paper books. You know, one of this is not any different. It is literally no different. When the ebooks first started hitting it, well, I remember when ebooks first came out, Sony came out with an ebook reader, and I remember I went to a Borders and played with it, and I thought, almost, you know, it was so slow, and Sony, you know, I mean, sorry guys, but you know, Sony is kind of untrustworthy, and I never thought their thing was going to take off, and by the way, it did. But you know, when Amazon jumped into the market, I knew that's the guys, they're going to get it right, and you hear from people though, they're like, oh, I like when I buy a book, I can smell the paper, and it's, you know, it's got that new paper smell or whatever. Like, you don't get that with a book. Yeah, you know, fair enough. You know, some books aren't great on a little ebook reader screen. Like there are coffee table books and comic books that require tablets maybe or something.
Yeah.
Yep, I hear you. Yeah, sure. It's not perfect for everyone in every single situation. I got it. But inexorably, the world is moving in that direction. It just is. And so it is. Video games are no different. It's no different. Just like, you know, you can rent videos online, and you don't have to get them on disc. You know, and there'll be, you know, Blu-rays look better than HD video. Yeah, maybe. But I also don't have to get in my car and drive down to a store, pick up a disc or whatever, and bring it to my house. Or go through some kind of hokey mail order service that does that for me. It's, you know, it's never a perfect transition. It's never perfect for everyone. There's always going to be complaints. But this is just the same exact transition that we've already made, you know, with other markets.
Absolutely. I want to continue this discussion, of course, Paul, but we do have to take a little break and talk about Shutterstock.com. What is Shutterstock? Well, if you are a web designer, if you're a photographer, if you are creating graphics, if you're creating video clips, this is the place for you. This is a service you should all check out. Has over 26 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vector files, and, of course, video clips. And Shutterstock will help you get creative and take your project to the next level. It's a great offer for our viewers. If you are creating a website, if you're anything, this is a great service because you get 30% off on a new account by going to Shutterstock.com and using offer code WhatTheTech. I bit my tongue while Paul was talking, and I nearly cried, and the side of my tongue is throbbing right now. And this is like the third show in a row that I've done it. I have no idea what's going on with me, but I'm going to continue telling you about Shutterstock. They're adding about 10,000 images every day. So if you go there right now and you see something that, if you're looking for something for your website and you don't find it, guess what? Check again tomorrow because it might be there. We use Shutterstock here on the network all the time for all our imaging. Suncast that does a lot of graphic overlays for us, and he creates our lower thirds and our show images. A lot of the time, he'll go to Shutterstock and get his ideas by just looking for whatever, you know, topic is. So we recently, a couple months ago, launched a wrestling show here on the network, and wrestling, not like Olympic wrestling, but like I'm gonna hit you over the head with a chair wrestling. And we were looking for some sort of idea and some sort of concept for it, and we went to Shutterstock and started searching under wrestling, and we came up with some great ideas, and we actually bought a couple clips from there and created this graphic for the website. That's Shutterstock.com. They have over 26 million high-quality photos, illustrations, vectors to choose from, and if you use offer code WhatTheTech6, you got 30% off on a new account. I want to thank Shutterstock for supporting What the Tech. That hurt so bad, Paul. That was one of the most painful things I did ever in my life. So it's like numb. I couldn't even say it. It's like, it's honestly numb on one side. It's this weird thing that I did during a show. Let's talk about PC gaming, because you don't hear this from the PC side. You never hear the argument.
You don't hear what?
The argument of, you know, I bought this PC game and I want to lend it to my friend, and he can't play my Warcraft account, or he can't play the game that I want to play. Like, it doesn't work like that on the PC side. Like, this concept of taking a game to your friend's house and playing it on their computer, that doesn't really happen.
Right.
And it's interesting how they're so separated. You know, the console is so separated from the PC gaming. Like, let's talk about, I don't know, come over to game for, I'm just coming out with, like, Dota, for example, or like a Warcraft type game. The concept of paying $40 for the game plus paying another $10 a month to play that game on the console is not really there. Like, that does not exist. So I find it interesting that, like, one argument on one side is totally irrelevant on the other one.
Well,
and they're the same niche.
They're different environments. And so, I mean, if you are truly a hardcore gamer and all you care about is the best possible graphic fidelity and highest resolution screens, you know, screens with the resolutions that go well past 1080p HD, you know, obviously PCs are the only place to be. That said, it's a really small market, And this is something I talked to Rafael Rivera about, the guy that I write those the Windows books with. He and I had kind of jokingly gone back and forth on the PC versus 360 thing for a long time, and we, you know, he would comment about, oh, I'd picked up some game for the PC, and I'm like, they still make games for PCs, you know, that kind of joke, and we'd do this back and forth. But finally one day, you know, we were talking on Skype, and he said, you know, he goes, I'm gonna have to start looking at the 360 because there are multiplayer games where no one is online on the PC, and there were hundreds of thousands of people online at any given time on the 360, same exact game. And so I think I don't remember if it was Battlefield 3 or Black Ops 2. It was one of those games, but you know, sometime in the last 6 months or whatever, you know, he looked online and there were like 16,000 people. He checked it over a series of days, you know, playing on, you know, Windows, and like 785,000 people playing on, you know, it was completely different. And so he's like, you know, I want to get into this game and play a certain kind of match, and you can't do that on Windows because no one's there.
No one's there, yeah.
And then you show up with the 360 and instantly you're in. You know?
But here's an interesting thing. I was reading an article about the original Xbox a couple of weeks ago. It could have been your website. It maybe wasn't. Yep. There's a good chance it wasn't. Okay. But they were in the article they were discussing like the original concept behind the Xbox and how they wanted to bridge this gap between PC gaming and console gaming. And originally the concept was that you would kind of bridge them, so you would have one game, and if you played it on the PC, you could challenge people that are playing it on the console. And they had to abandon that entire idea because of the latency. There was such latency between the two, I guess, you know, however they were doing it, I guess because the PCs are far more powerful than the console. How come that concept has not been revisited over the last, 10 years?
Why hasn't it been?
Yeah, like why is that still an unrealistic thing for this generation?
No, I think this would be the time. I wondered about that too. To be honest, I don't know why that hasn't been a bigger deal.
I mean, they got really technical on why it didn't work. Was it your website that I read it on?
This is a while ago.
Because it caught my eye. Whatever it was, it caught my eye. And
you read this recently?
Yeah, last week I read it.
Oh no,
okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, so I really want to find it and I'll send it to you, Paul, because it was actually very well detailed. But why is that not happening now? Like, I understand Sony doesn't have that. Well, Sony too. They have games, but Microsoft has a far larger advantage when it comes to cross-platform gaming from the PC
and their service
Xbox.
Works across platforms already. Xbox Live is on the PC. It's on the phone even. I don't know. And again, there was an experiment years ago. Remember, there was a game called Shadowrun.
Yeah.
That's which was terrible too. And that was a game that nobody played that game. It was awful. I don't know. I've always wondered this. This is something that comes up, and even as long ago as 2010, when they did the first demos of Windows Phone, one of the demos they showed was a game that eventually did come out called The Harvest. That they were, they wrote this thing in XNA, and they said, look, here's the version on the PC, it works fine. Here's the version on the Xbox 360, and here's the version on Windows Phone. And look, they all look identical. We just had to make small tweaks. And you think, well, God, if they're that close, why can't this kind of happen? it's not just technology. I think for depending on the game type, there are games like that are shooters, like for Call of Duty would be an example, where if you were really proficient at Call of Duty on a PC with the level of granular control you get with a mouse and a keyboard, you would probably be able to dominate anyone on a 360 because the controller, the hand controller, is just a more of a vague kind of control system than you get with the mouse.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the way the game is made. So I think those kind of differences make it difficult. I suppose they could institute a system where that kind of game you'd have to play it with a controller and the PC as well to make it more even, or however they do that.
I mean, they could do so much with it.
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about Sony a little bit also, because this is such a Microsoft Xbox dominated show, because I personally, I'm really excited about the Xbox because of all its TV integration. So you know what? That's what I want to talk about. But I do think they have an advantage this time around. Sony does have somewhat of an advantage. And that's the perception of the gaming community. And I don't know how they could take that and run with it and make it work for them. But there is a slight advantage for them currently at this moment. You know, in June of 2013, the perception that the community, gaming community, actually is favoring Sony. And this has not happened to them for a long time. What can they do? I mean, in your Paul Thurrott,
I actually think they're kind of screwed, though.
What's going to make you buy it?
That's the thing. So Sony did an amazing job at E3 of capitalizing on the PR mistakes that Microsoft made, right? They did a really good job with that. And you know, congratulations. But the problem for Sony is that they're done. You know, there's no further good news coming from Sony. Like they played their hand, you know. Microsoft played what I thought at the time was a very strong hand at E3, but obviously fell apart in the the public perception arena.
Yeah.
And so they made changes. But here's the thing. Microsoft's in the news all the time. Sony is not. And even though it was negative for a while there, I think the basic gist of all the actual mainstream news stories I've read is they turned it around. So it was like, yep, Sony stuck a fork in it, and it made them squirm a little bit, and they responded, and now they've changed it. And so I think whatever advantage that Sony had was very temporary, and I don't think it's going to translate into anything. And as far as going forward, I mean, what are they left with? They basically they're going to have whatever games they have, whatever the game library is, whatever unique games they have, and that's the same thing they had with the PS3. Everyone has Blu-ray now. Everyone being the two players. They're both running on x86. I mean, people are going to quibble over like this thing has this and this one has this, but these are basically very comparable, same, almost identical systems. It really comes down to ecosystem, and I keep falling back to the thing I keep saying, which is I think Microsoft has the stronger. I think
Nintendo came out with a new Luigi game this week.
That is unbelievable.
You know what they did actually, which was fascinating? If you have the Mario Wii U game, which I do, you get to purchase the Luigi game for $20 on their online, through their whatever store, the virtual store, whatever they call it. If you don't have the game, you have to wait till August till it's released retail.
Okay.
And it kind of, in a weird way, it's like that's not bad. It's kind of forcing you to use their ecosystem and purchase this game on their whatever download service that they have. I don't know. I thought it was. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I thought it was interesting that's what they're trying. You know what? They get an A for effort. At least they get an A. Paul, let's talk about Build a little bit.
Okay.
I want to talk about Build. You're going. Are you excited?
Well, excited is a strong term. I mean, I'm happy to do it. I mean, a little stressed, as I often get before this kind of trip, but obviously there's going to be a big Windows 8.1 reveal, which I think will be interesting to people. I have a lot of content in the queue for that already. So one thing I can tell people is that, stay tuned for whenever this stuff goes live. I will have a bunch of stuff right there.
Are people going to be surprised with anything, or it's kind of in line with what people expect?
So I actually, how do I say this? I think that there is a big story around Windows 8 one that hasn't been told yet, and I know what it is, and I can't really say anything. But here's the joke: it's not a secret. Like, there's not some new feature that no one has heard about exactly. There's a feature that we all know was sort of in there, but we didn't understand how profound it was, and it's a big deal. And I think it's not that it's not going to put Windows 8 one over the top or anything. Don't get me wrong. I think that the big deal here is they fixed a bunch of stuff, and by the way, they fixed a bunch of stuff on the desktop side and on the Metro side, and that story is very interesting. Lots of small things. They've done things in Windows 8.1 where you can pretend Metro doesn't exist for the most part if you use the desktop. Likewise, if you have a tablet and you use the Metro stuff, you can pretend the desktop doesn't exist for to a large degree.
If I were to guess right now, right? If I were to guess right now what that thing is, I'm going to guess that widgets are back on the desktop. No. Okay. No. It was worth a shot.
No, well, I will say this. I mean, we were just had a theoretical conversation about the future of consoles and how cloud computing can impact that going forward with subsequent generations and all that kind of stuff. And I would say that I guess what I'll say is that it's that kind of a thing. I mean, you'll see Wednesday.
I mean, to me, well, to me, I'm more than the Windows 8 stuff. It's what are they going to do with development on the Metro side? What are they going to do with development for the Xbox?
Yeah, right. So that stuff I don't know anything about that. But I know that one thing they'll talk about at Build, because it is a developer show, is them bringing the programming environments for Windows and Windows Phone closer together. Not identical, but closer. I think that's important. The way things are today isn't horrible, to be honest, but they are different, different APIs. Xbox is kind of that question mark over in the corner. Are they going to offer something like that? I've talked about this notion of maybe there being like a WinXRT API, which would allow you to take your Windows 8/Windows Phone programming skills and create applications or games that run on Xbox. I made that up. I don't know. I don't have any inside information. I just look at it logically and think they should do that. So we'll see. I mean, and I think it will be interesting for that reason. And by the way, just so you know, there are going to be 2 keynote addresses at Build. One is on Wednesday and one is on Thursday. That's the way that they used to do tech ed keynotes. And I'm thinking that they're going to split these up in some ways. That one of them will be like, well, the Wednesday one most likely will be the big, here's Windows 8.1, here's the preview release that we promised you. You can download it and install it if you want. And that the second one might be more dev focused, which is what they used to do at tech ed. They didn't do it this year. This is the first year in recent memory they had one tech ed keynote. No, they had developer bits in there, but they used to always do the Visual Studio stuff, on the second day. So, we'll see. We'll see how they split that up.
I mean, there's also rumors coming out today, and I don't know how solid they are, but Microsoft may be changing their minds over the one self-publishing, where they would not allow developers to push their own games on the console.
Right.
That's also coming out.
I think they need to. Come on. Have we learned nothing over the past 5, 7, whatever years? I mean, you need to have a vibrant apps ecosystem for this stuff to take off.
I mean, you got to keep the developers happy, and you have to give them a reason to develop for you. I mean, that's the major difference between the BlackBerry marketplace and Android and iOS and even Windows Phone. You have to let the developers. Yeah. You have to make the developers happy to develop for you. They're not happy, they're not going to develop. It's really changed. Right. I mean, if you really think about it, like 10 years ago, what it was like to develop an application. You made an app, you put it on your website, and you sold it. Hopefully, somebody found it. Now, like, you have this vast.
Yeah. It's not just that. I mean, that is obviously a big difference. It's also the tools you would use to create that, the languages you would write it in, the APIs you would write them to. You were really on your own for a lot of this stuff. And now there's these, the APIs are amazing. Managed code, well, it's not really managed code, but it's, C# and these modern programming languages that are awesome. The ability to put them into a store, like you were, just saying. I mean, there's huge changes there, and they need to bring it to the Xbox. And so again, this is just my opinion and my hope, but we're going to find out this week, I think.
I mean, some of the other stuff that came out today was that they're considering unifying the Windows and Windows Phone division. I don't know how much that makes sense.
I've always thought that made sense. I mean, I've always sort of felt like Windows Phone should be the basic version of Windows with a phone dialer added to it and whatever other, small screen utilities they may need. I mean, I don't understand why those two things aren't the same thing.
I guess maybe because, could it be because that they were kind of the same and it failed for them with Windows Mobile, and then they had this different approach to it, and now they're kind of unifying it again because it's so similar?
I don't really feel that I don't think those things were the same, but I understand what you're saying. But I just think we're at the point now where a phone is a computer. The Windows Phone today has a 1.5 gigahertz processor. It's got 2 gigs of RAM. It's got, X amount of storage plus 64 gigs on an SD card. It's got all kinds of wireless capabilities. It's got things, that are just starting to hit PCs like NFC. It's a PC. That doesn't mean I need to run PowerShell on it. It doesn't mean I need to, it can still be componentized, right? It can still have that notion of, this is a subset of what you get on full Windows. But, apps could be optimized for the portrait orientation of the screen and, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think it's silly in a way, when you think about Windows Phone, first couple of versions, it was 800 by 480 screen, and that was it. The second version, or 8.0 version, they have 3 screen resolutions they support. It's like, just make it Windows. Just support whatever. It should just scale. It should scale to whatever. Don't.
But why isn't it like that? Why isn't it? Like, what's their reasoning behind that?
They were trying to make it simple. One of the things that got ahead of them with Windows Mobile was there were too many different kinds of things going on. But that is one of the things that actually doesn't affect anybody, because you could have a company that would make a very high resolution screen with maybe a big display, and that would be a differentiator for them. And the apps would scale automatically. There's no extra coding involved. I mean, it's something they should just do. It's something that works very well on Windows today. In Windows 8, with the Metro environment. It's one of those things they don't get a lot of credit for, but those applications scale wonderfully to different size screens and different resolution screens. And it's something I think they could do pretty easily on Windows Phone.
I want to continue that because a lot of people, I had a very interesting discussion with somebody that had no idea what Windows 8 was. They just bought a laptop, and it was like a punch in the face for them. They were like, what is this? And I want to talk about my experience, but before we do that, we got to thank one last sponsor, and that's Squarespace. What is Squarespace? Squarespace is an all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a high-professional website, blog, portfolio, and now an online store. They have an amazing and fabulous e-commerce solution. If you are watching the show and you want to support the show, you go to squarespace.com and use offer code WhatTheTech6 after you're done with your free trial, and you get 10% off on a new account, which is amazing. Since its platform upgrade last fall, I had never used Squarespace prior to the new platform, and so I don't know what it was like with the old one, but this new platform is phenomenal. Very easy to use. This Week in Radio Tech, which is here on the GFK Network, they have a Squarespace site, and I just log in there and I just plug everything in, and I'm able to kind of add the show for them every week, and it's so easy. Simple to use. I'm not a big web guy. I've done WordPress. I've done a little Joomla and Drupal, but this is so easy to use, and they make it simple for everybody to use. They also make it very easy for you to get in touch with someone with 24 hours a day, 7 days a week support that provides you also with a live chat during the week. So it's extremely fast and easy to kind of get in touch with someone. Some of the other things that they do is everything is drag and drop, so you can kind of build out your layout. For someone that doesn't really know much about, building a website. If you're an expert in this stuff, they also offer you this developer edition where you could kind of fine tune and style everything the way you want it. Very easy, very simple, and really reliable. Squarespace.com is a website. Use offer code WhatTheTech6, and you get 10% off your first purchase. Also, it's a free trial, so you can try it out for free. No credit card needed, nothing. If you go to squarespace.com, use offer code WhatTheTech6. That's actually how I did it. I'm pretty friendly with Brian Brushwood, and I made a website claiming that he stabbed me a couple months ago. And I did it. I was on NSFW, and I did it on NSFW while he was doing the Squarespace read on his show. So I'm like, look how easy it is. And just, 1, 2, 3, I made a website. And I had to take it down because I felt that he didn't stab me, and I shouldn't accuse him of that. So Squarespace.com, What the Tech 6 is the offer code, 10% off. Also, free trial if you go there. So check them out. So I want to talk about Windows 8, and I want to talk about the experience that this person had, and I kind of want to throw an idea past you, Paul, because I've discussed this a couple times, and I've kind of thrown this idea out there where I think you said it didn't kind of make sense, and I think a couple of people have told me it doesn't make sense either, but I want to see what the audience thinks. There's about 150 people in our chat room, so I'm sure they're going to have an opinion on this. So this person bought Windows 8. They bought a Windows 8 laptop, a brand new Lenovo, not a low-end one either, probably $700. And they turned it on, and they had probably their last laptop was like a Windows Vista laptop. They turned the thing on, and they have no idea what to do. It's like a whole new world for them. And normally, I would give it a chance. I'd say, okay, you know what? I have this thing for like 2 weeks. I'm going to play around with it. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, guess what? I don't need to keep it. I could return it. They returned it instantly. I mean, sure. It was so overwhelming. Which, by the way, for them.
Is why they're fixing it. But go on.
I mean, so she returned it instantly. I mean, she really was shocked at it. And it's not like our audience was just going to be like, okay, well, I can figure out. I'll go online. I'll read about how I could go into this. Like if I want a start menu, I could install an app for that, whatever it is. They were just freaked out by it. They didn't get it. They didn't want it. They returned it. They're contemplating the purchase of a MacBook. And they're saying, well, you know what? It's still like a desktop. It's still like Windows. Really, I'm still familiar with it. There's buttons and there's right click, and it's this area where...
Okay, I'm sorry. I find this view to be slightly ignorant, but Windows is still Windows. I mean, I get that there's a start screen, but seriously, I mean, the other thing is, in Windows 8.1, they're actually making some concessions to desktop users that haven't gotten a lot of press for some reason. We know that they're going to let people boot directly into the desktop, for example. We know that the start button is going to be there all the time on the desktop, for example. But what they haven't talked about a lot is that a lot of the Metro gunk that you see on the edges of the screen can optionally be turned off in some cases. So, for example, there's a new Metro-style app switcher that appears on the left side of the screen. You can turn that off. And so you just use the desktop-style app switching. There's a charms bar that appears when you move the mouse into the corners of the screen on the right. You can turn that off for the top corner. They have to have a way to let you get to charms somehow, so they're leaving the bottom corner on. Yeah. But you can optionally turn off the top corner. Get rid of that. You can reconfigure the start screen when you click the start button to not be the start screen, to be the all apps view, which is just a view of your apps. And if you sort it by category, you can have it appear with your desktop applications first, so that's what's there because you're in the desktop.
Yeah.
And so, basically, in this version of Windows that I just described, yes, there is a full screen start menu thing that appears. That can be the start menu as we now know it, or it can be just simple icons in an app view. It is full screen, so you do have to deal with that. But honestly, beyond that, it's pretty much Windows 7, with a cleaner look.
I'm not running Windows 8 right now, but I get it. Like I personally get it. But what are people's options? So right now, let's say I buy this thing. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm freaking out. What the hell is this?
Sucking it up and just figuring it out because you are a man.
Which you know what? Most people don't do that. That's the thing, though. Most people don't do that. I mean, these are the same people that would say that my computer's running slower. Let me delete my system files. This is the world that we live in. So,
Microsoft is never going to do the thing that many people think they should do, which is to either auto-detect the kind of computer you're using or to put up a prompt that says, hey, it looks like you're using a desktop computer. Do you want to run this thing in desktop mode and kind of turn this gunk off? And you say yes, and then it looks like Windows 7. I mean, a lot of people would love them to do that. And the reason they're not going to do that is because they really are trying to move this stuff forward so that we are prepared for this kind of future of computing because it's changing. The interfaces are changing. And, you can try to stave it off with a Mac, I guess. But the truth is, Computers are changing, and they're going to change over there too. And when you make a transition as an Apple user from a MacBook Air to an iPad, that transition is far more jarring
than
Windows 8 in some ways, because the old desktop UI is not still there. Some people, well, actually, I should say no people seem to have a problem with that. So I'm sort of unclear with the Windows 8 thing. Like, I get the complaints. I agree it's a Frankenstein's monster in some ways, but
I think for a lot of people, Paul, the tablet is a tablet. Like they're going into it and saying like, well, there's no keyboard on this, so it's a stupid little thing that I could check my email on.
Right.
With the computer, and this is the reaction that I've seen, and I've actually been surprised
with it. Then they had a keyboard
with it.
to it, and
well, people do that, but this is the reaction I've seen from people, and it is jarring to see this reaction. These are not advanced users; they're not involved in the Apple stuff. They've never had a Mac, and they're saying like, well, if I don't like Windows, I guess I have to go buy a Mac.
I think that is an incredibly stupid idea personally, but I really think that someone who's used to Windows would realistically not have a problem with Windows 8 if they gave it more than 10 seconds. Yeah. I do agree that Microsoft hasn't done a good job in the product of advertising, how stuff works and explaining it. I think that was a big mistake.
I mean, even in the tutorial, like you start it up, I think there should be like a detailed tutorial saying like, hey, listen, things are a little different now. Don't freak out. Sure. Don't unplug it and throw it in the corner and run, to the other end of the house.
They took kind of a hardball approach to that stuff, but yeah.
I'm hoping with 8.1 they kind of they not kind of fix it, but like they kind of fix it, really, because I'm surprised to see this reaction from people. Like, and I'm not obviously I'm not talking about the people buying a $400 laptop. They're not saying like, well, now I'm going to have to spend another $600. Like, if you're in the price point of $1,000 and you get a MacBook, I'm sorry, you get a Windows 8 laptop, and you look at this thing and you're like, this is way too different for me.
I don't know. I don't even know what to say. This is just, to me, is ridiculous.
I think so too.
Everything you love about Windows is present in Windows 8 today. Everything. The only thing that's missing is the start button, which you don't need, and the start menu instead of a start screen.
And by the way, Ritdog in the chat room is right. The person that's using this computer is generally doing Word, they're doing Gmail, and they're doing browsing. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Then a tablet would work great for you.
Yeah.
So maybe you should just get an iPad. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. I think I'm just too used to it. I don't know.
But it's a crazy thing. Like, that's their other option. Like, they're thinking like, well, can I? And I had the discussion with them. She said, I guess I have to buy a Mac if I want, like old. This was the word. I guess I have to buy a Mac if I want like an old Windows look.
Okay.
And
I don't know.
I said, no, well, you really don't, because here are your options. And I told her, she could even, can't she get a Windows 7?
$10 on a Stardock utility or two Stardock utilities and make it look like Windows 7. Jesus, what's the problem? I really don't understand this.
Or what they could do is actually, they're buying it from, let's say, Best Buy, for example. Go to Best Buy and say, like, hey, listen.
They would love to rake you under the coals and put Windows 7 on it.
Put Windows 7 on it, yeah.
Yeah, sure, they would be very happy to do that. Poorly. Go ahead.
Please.
You deserve it. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
It's a possibility. You could do it. But it was interesting that this was their reaction, though. Like, instead of saying, can I get Windows 7? No, I guess I have to buy a Mac.
You might not be smart enough to use Windows. Maybe maybe it is time to use a Mac.
I honestly don't think people should be using a traditional desktop at all. Like, if you are if you are
it depends on what you're doing.
Well, you know what? If you are 90% of the people using a computer and all you're doing is browsing, email, you're going on Facebook, you're playing some stupid Zynga game on Facebook.
Sure.
Most people are not doing, PowerPoint presentations and Excel spreadsheets.
I would give anything to be that person.
Oh, I wish
would give
I was.
anything to be the guy who needed some Zynga game as my killer app, my must-have killer app. That would be fantastic. That's not my life.
Hellcat in our chat room says, my response would be, you're not my friend anymore. You're just a dumb person.
Right.
Yeah. But right. I do find it fascinating. Like, there is in my opinion, I think this is the first time ever that you don't necessarily have to have a computer to do everything you want to do.
Of course, but that explains Windows 8. That's the point.
Yeah. And there's backlash.
The beauty of Windows 8 is but you have that option. You know, if you could use a Metro browser and an email program and with Facebook, whatever, they're wonderful. But you also get the full Microsoft Word, and you can install Photoshop, and you can write applications in Visual Studio. You can do whatever you want. You know, that's the point. And it's sort of like the messaging on the Xbox One. It gets clouded in the, you know, you got Metro in my PC baloney because people get so freaked out about something that they're not seeing the big picture, and they've forgotten the good half of it because all they see is the bad.
And I think
they're not even interested in talking about it.
No, they don't even want to change it. I mean, it's amazing to me that we have a lot of people just give up that easily. Well, no, this is so different. I don't want to spend any time learning how to use this. And I'm
sorry. I just we have bigger problems in the Windows world than this, to be honest. I actually think if you do want to buy a tablet and that's your kind of thing, and what's the option on the Windows side, honestly, there aren't that many really good options. Because the ones that are really good, like this on the Windows side, because the Surface stuff is too expensive, and the other stuff is cheap and it stinks. And you know, maybe that changes with Haswell and new generation of hardware or whatever. But that's a legitimate issue. You know, like to me, like that's a pretty serious one.
Well, I mean, they put out Windows. They put out that the Surface Pro when technically that device should have come out this year with Haswell.
Well, with Haswell, sure.
I mean, the total perception of that device would have been totally different. You know, people would not be bitching and moaning about the price.
Right. And you can't always wait to enter a market.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that was their plan from the beginning, which I'm probably guessing it was, and Intel maybe delayed it. Who knows?
If you thought this Xbox stuff was bad, and of course now we're revisiting the rotted corpse of Windows 8 as well. You know, next week could be kind of interesting, right? Because supposedly there's some humongous Nokia meeting happening with shareholders or whatever. This week, and there is the possibility that the company may be forced to go in a different direction, right? And one of the things that I read today that I thought would be kind of an interesting outcome, if you think about it, is Microsoft buying Nokia sounds kind of obvious to some people, myself included.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't happen, you know, what then? You know, Nokia is responsible for 80% of Windows Phone sales. If Nokia is forced to split up its resources and start developing Android handsets or something else, you know, what then? You know, what happens to the platform then?
Well, it totally gets bastardized, the entire thing.
Right. Well, what if Microsoft buys RIM? Right? I mean, what if, you know, a Surface phone is some future thing that combines the resources of those two platforms into one thing, right? Yeah. Next week, we could be having a very crazy discussion, depending on how things go.
I mean, to me, it makes the most sense for Microsoft to purchase RIM. Nokia.
Okay, yeah, me too.
I mean, that really makes the most sense to me.
But what if that's not on the table? In other words, what if there's a lot more, you know, you can't just, you know, you don't just show up with a check and say, we'd like to buy you now. I mean, this, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality of it, but.
Yeah. So Nokia's shareholders could decide that, no, that's not the right strategy for us. We're worth more than you're willing to pay, you know, whatever it is. They may have to go to different. I mean, what happens? I mean, Windows Phone would implode if Nokia, even if Nokia didn't leave the market but down-tuned their involvement with Windows Phone, that would be an immediate implosion.
But I mean, Nokia is not selling anything other than a Windows Phone, right?
Well, actually, Nokia sells a very successful line of feature phones called Asha.
Yeah, the Asha. Yeah. But you know, it's not a U.S. market though.
No, but I mean, come on, Nokia hasn't really been part of the U.S. market,
and they killed the Symbian line. You know that's done. Mm-hmm. So really, they're in Nokia's futures in Microsoft.
Is it? I think we're going to find out. I mean, I think that's the point.
I mean, you know what makes the most sense? The Windows Phone exclusive is on Nokia. Forget about Samsung. Forget about all of them. You have, 3 phones that Nokia puts out every year. The midline, the lower end one, and the higher end one. Then you have the Surface tablets that are made by Nokia as well. It's one unified look all across the board. They look beautiful. You're following that Apple model where the devices all kind of look the same and they feel the same and it's familiar. So you're not getting one that's old plasticky and one that's
higher end. At that
end.
point, the company would have to be part of Microsoft.
They would have to be, yeah.
You can't partner with them. You have to bring them in house.
It's amazing how
Skype.
Yeah, well, it's
independently run, but part of the company.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just saying, if you're tired of Xbox One, wait a week because things could be changing. We'll see.
This. Oh God! Imagine they buy RIM. You know what people's response is going to be?
What better way to make a third ecosystem than take the rest of the market and just combine it? It would still be nothing, but I mean, it's a thought. I mean, I don't agree with it or whatever. I don't recommend it.
You know what people are going to say then? Oh, great! Microsoft buying another old dead company like themselves.
Actually, I think the stock phrase is going to be something like, "Two turkeys don't make an eagle."
Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh, God. I love the text. I love the tech stuff, but like sometimes I'm like, but things make way too much sense, and then that's why it doesn't happen. Right. I honestly thought that announcement with Nokia, when they announced that partnership, was going to be like, Nokia is our exclusive provider of Windows Phone. We're going to be working directly with them. No other phones are coming out. Forget about Samsung. Forget about everybody else. We don't need them. This is it. And they're going to be making our hardware for us as well. Sure.
Well, it could still happen.
Well, crossing my fingers.
I do. I love Nokia. I mean, I think they're such a stupid thing to say in a way, but they're almost more important than Windows Phone than Microsoft is. I mean, it's ludicrous when I say that, but
let's see. Nokia's, I guess the design of the phone, right?
The hardware is beautiful. Their ability to create an ecosystem around Windows Phone is unmatched anywhere else. And I don't just mean software services, although they do that, obviously, especially the Here navigation apps.
This could be a stupid question, Paul, but who designed the Surface?
Well, Microsoft did internally. It's
all internal, though. No.
It's just kind of a skunkworks. No. Yeah, okay. It was no external design or anything. It was, internal.
Okay. I mean, it's very Nokia-like, so...
Yeah.
Exciting stuff. I'm now more depressed. You know what I get? I get agita really bad after the show's done. Like, I'm just like...
I have that effect.
By the way, for people who don't live on the East Coast and don't know what that term is, because I'm going to get that. What the hell is that word you just said?
Sure.
It means heartburn in Italian, but you also use it for, like, stress. Agita. That's the word of the day. Paul's going to come up with a New England term. Paul's going to come up with a New England term for next week's word of the day. All right, let's wrap it up. So, Paul, you're going to be traveling all week. You're going to build. You're going to be covering it from there. And then on Friday, you're doing Windows Weekly from Twit.
Right.
And you have a meetup happening, right?
Yeah, we actually have a couple. So anyone who wants to meet up with me and Mary Jo and Raphael and some of the other bloggers, we're going to be, I need to look at this. I think it's the Thirsty. Let me just look it up rather than say it. But on Thursday night in San Francisco, if you're there, we're going to be at the Thirsty Bear Brewery, which is on Howard Street in San Francisco. I think it's near the Moscone Center. So from 6 to 8:30, anybody can come by and we'll just be there. There's also a private party happening where we have tickets we can give out after that at 8 o'clock. But then Friday, anyone who wants to come up to Petaluma and go to the Twit Brick House, as it's called.
Can I come?
Will be but you have you have to RSVP with tickets at twit.tv just to let them know you're coming because they need to know how many seats and
tickets.twit.tv.
Tickets at twit.tv.
Tickets at twit.tv. Very, very cool.
5 o'clock.
And you're going to be coming here to New York, possibly July 11th.
Yeah. So
are we doing a meetup?
We haven't talked about this, but yeah, I would think so. Okay. I need to think about
can
when
we dress
that would
the
be.
same?
So yeah, sure.
Oh, okay, good.
Well, let's talk about that as we get closer to it. But maybe the night before or that night, depending on the schedule. So we'll see.
And how are you doing? Have you figured out where you're doing your shows?
When?
I think it's a Thursday, right?
What is?
The meetup.
The event.
The event is a Thursday, so...
I have no idea. So maybe...
More than welcome to do it from here.
Yeah, I mean, I could do that. I don't know what the timing is on the event, but yeah, sure.
Very, very cool. Go to our website, gfqnetwork.com. Also check out winsupersite.com, all things Paul. I don't do an RSS, surprisingly. A lot of people tell me, like, what are you, crazy? You don't use an RSS reader? I don't use an RSS. I actually like to go to the websites, and Paul's website is probably the first website I go to every day because it's so easy to read.
It's
very easy to read.
It's written at a very low grade level.
And you know what? That's actually positive SEO. I don't know if you know about that, Paul.
Oh,
but they say the most successful websites on the internet are written at a 5th grade level.
Yes.
So it helps. Mine is like a 1st grade level. I can't even speak. My tongue is still messed up. Guys, you can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zarian on Twitter. I will be sure to write back. Paul's at The Rot. You can follow Paul. Also, we have a Facebook fan page. We have a What the Tech page on Facebook where we give you all our updates and all our show posts. It's facebook.com/whatthetechgfq. Somebody has What the Tech. Very disappointing that they have it. Let's see what's What the Tech.
Someone has What the Tech.
Yeah. The last time you know what? I should be able to have this. The last time they wrote something was August 13, 2011.
There must be a way to complain.
I'm going to complain. And they give free tech support. What the Tech? Free tech support. Think you have a virus? Visit us, and we'll remove it. Oh my God! There's a website, whatthetech.com.
It's like a spam.
It looks like it. I don't know what the hell this is. Yeah.
Where is this place?
Whatthetech.com.
Yeah. No. I mean, where are they physically located?
I have no idea. Let me see. Contact. It says if you want a PR inquiry, you could contact us. I have no idea. I don't like you people. I've already decided.
I just need to contact your lawyers.
Yeah, you know what? I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
It's not what we would call a busy blog.
No, it's not busy. So you can follow us on Facebook, What the Tech GFQ. Also follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zarian at The Rot. And that's it, guys. We'll see you all next week on What the Tech. Good night, everybody.